This is an Oklahoma Freedman History Moment. Do you know the difference between the index and the final roll? I'm talking about the Dawes Roll. What was the actual purpose of the Dawes Roll? Well, many are unaware that the list was actually created with the intention of creating a list of people who would be eligible to receive land allotments. Those who would be found eligible for the rolls were entitled to an allotment of land, usually a homestead. The federal government used these rolls to distribute over 138 million acres of tribal land. Approximately 50 million acres were actually allotted to people in 5 Native American tribes: Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Muskogee Creek, and Seminole Nations. The acres that remained, the millions of acres, were then going to be made available to non-Native people for settlement that would lead to eventual Oklahoma statehood. But many are unaware that there are 2 rolls. There's the index to the final roll, and then there's the final roll itself. The index is what many people use to simply find a roll number. It consists of basically 3 columns: last name, first name, and the roll number. The final roll, slightly different. It contains the names of the exact same people, but it is arranged differently. As one can see, there are more columns there with more information. Looking a bit more closely, we see the name Amelia Folsom, a name I want you to remember. Amelia Folsom, her roll number was roll number 1. Then we see numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Amelia Folsom's card, or in her case, her roll number, is followed by the McDaniel family, rolls number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then the next family group comes in, and they're giving the numbers in sequence. The index to the final roll is basically an alphabetical list. And this is important because one can take a look very quickly and find an ancestor's roll number. The final roll is numerical, beginning with the person whose number is number 1 and then going down in sequence. In this case, you see individuals 2, 3, and 4, and 5 don't have the same surname, a different household, and of course, their numbers, as we can see, go in sequence. But as we look at Amelia Folsom's enrollment card, we see there she is, the number 1 stamped to the left of her name. She's the only person on her card, and she is on card number 163. And you find that in the upper right-hand corner of the card. Now, card number 1 is different. We see Simon Clark on card number 1. And as you look a little bit more closely, you see, of course, there it is, number 1 in the upper right-hand corner. But you will notice that there's no number stamped next to his name and even a line drawn through it. But his wife and 3 sons do have numbers: 2984, 85, 86, and 87. And of course, you can see why there is no number next to his name and the line drawn through it, because at the very bottom, you see number 1, and he's on line number 1. He died April 12th, 1901. So he died long before the rolls were ever finalized. And when they were finalized, that is when the numbers were assigned. So he died a long time before the rolls closed, and subsequently he got no number, but his wife and sons did. You see, however, he also applied in 1898, September 3rd to be exact. With Amelia Folsom, she applied in April 1899, several months after Simon Clark applied. So the question does arise: what should one look for? Well, both are important, to be honest. The index is really useful because it provides a very quick lookup to find a roll number of an ancestor. The card number is there, of course, because it provides a lot more information. And that is when the final roll is where you will get information on the card number. The roll number today is used for citizenship by 5 tribes, all 5 tribes. It is also useful for those descendants who want to find out, where was my ancestors' land allotted? The roll number is critical because the roll number will give you that information. But when it comes to citizenship, all 5 tribes use the Dawes roll as their base roll. However, only 2 of the 5 tribes will process applications for citizenship for the descendants of freedmen. The Seminole Nation, as you can see, as well as the Cherokee Nation. Those to date are the only 2 nations that process applications for descendants of the people they once held enslaved. For the ancestral land that researchers are often wondering and asking, where was my family's land? Remember, they are arranged by the roll number. And it is important to understand that. And in those files, all kinds of information can be found. Plat maps. You, of course, will get the legal land description. You'll also be able to find a formal application that was filled out by the applicants. And in so many cases, you find wonderful interviews and so much more. Now, in the case of Amelia Folsom, remember, she was roll number 1. And you see that stamped in the upper right-hand corner of the envelope that contained her file, but you also see it stamped right in the middle. But remember, we see her card number was 163. And many times people are asked in the beginning, well, what's the roll number? And I've heard some people ask a question, what's the family roll number? Well, it's not a family roll number. Every person got a roll number if their name was on an enrollment card, on an admitted card. So, of course, we see her name as it appears. Now, remember, person on roll number 2, 3, 4, and 5. That was the McDaniel family. Each one of them, as you see, there's a separate envelope for each of them that contained their records because each one of them got an allotment of land, even the children. And if a household even had babies, even the babies got allotments of land. And those land records will lead you to an allotment map. This is an allotment map that one can find on the National Archives website. By following the legal land description, you can see shaded in where allotments were. And you see where the green circles appear on this allotment map. That's representing individuals 3, 4, and 5. Of course, individuals 2 and 3 appear on a different section of the larger map. So the value of the enrollment card, that's where you get more information about the family or the members of that household. We see Jesse McDaniel, we see his wife, Vinia, and we see their 2 sons, Jimmy and Henry. And in the very bottom, in the center of the card, you see some words that are written. As we zoom in and take a look, it says additional information on the reverse side of the card. We're looking at the reverse side. Remember the family. On lines 1 through 4, Jesse, Vinia, Jimmy, and Henry. Well, on the back, on line number 1, Jesse's father is Henry McDaniel. And following that line all the way to the right, you see more information that's there. You see where Jesse's father, Henry, lived in Eagle County. You also see information. Calvin Howell was the slaveholder of Henry McDaniel, who was Jesse McDaniel's father. You see the name of his mother, Martha. So now you know that Henry and Martha are the parents of Jesse McDaniel. You see where she was living in Eagle Township, And you see the mother was enslaved by Peter Pitchlynn. On his wife, Venia, you see the name Jordan Folsom. And I want you to remember that name, Jordan. You see more information. She was enslaved by Henry Folsom. You see a name of her mother. It's written as Permelia Folsom, but we're going to look at something in just a second about Permelia. You see, she was also enslaved by Henry Folsom. So, of course, there's a lot of wonderfully rich genealogical data that came from just looking at the back of that same card. In fact, what we end up with are the parents of both Jesse and Venia, their parents. So we get both sets of grandparents, of course, Jesse and Venia and their children. 3 generations are found on the enrollment card. Now, with Amelia Folsom's card, remember, she's on card number 163. She's roll number 1. And as you look at the interview that's in her folder, take a look at who's being interviewed. This is pertaining to, again, her file. But look what it's saying here. What is your name? Jordan Folsom. Jordan Folsom. And if you don't recall, Jordan Folsom was the name of, as you see it on line number 2, Venia McDaniel, who was Jesse McDaniel's wife. She's roll number 3. And of course, you realize, wow, Jordan Folsom, who's in the Amelia Folsom's card, she's roll number 1. You see that he is actually connected to Amelia in some way. And as you go down that page, you see in the middle, they ask the question, what is his wife's name? And he said, Amelia. Was she a slave? Yes, sir. And it says here, Jordan Folsom enrolled as Chickasaw freedman, because his mother had been a Chickasaw enslaved woman, and Amelia Folsom enrolled as Choctaw, which is amazingly rich information there. The Jesse McDaniel family, now his own file, his own folder, remember, he was on card number 164. And of course, there's a file number 164. And you find several documents in the file. You find at least 2 letters. You find an abbreviated interview. You find a birth affidavit for one of the children. And you even find a memoranda that's there as well. So remember, roll numbers that are used for citizenship, they're going to lead you to the land. And it's important to always recall that. For genealogy purposes, you need the enrollment card. Always the enrollment card. You find out who's in the household and who the parents were. For citizenship and for land, and for freedmen, it's citizenship in 2 nations. And for land, you want the roll number. So they're both valuable and both are important. Index to the final roll and the final roll. Know the difference, but use them both. And of course, keep in mind that you can easily do a lookup beyond looking for these on the National Archives website. You can also find these very, very simply, keeping in mind the value of both of them. This is a useful database you want to know. At the Oklahoma Historical Society website, a useful database that is free, no charge to use it, for also another quick lookup. In the case here, I've typed in the name Jesse McDaniel, who was Choctaw. And you see here the website, okhistory.org/research/DAWS. When I typed in the name Jesse McDaniel, 2 names actually came up. So which one of the 2 do I want? I want the one whose roll number was number 2 and who was 30 years old. Of course, we know he was married. And you'll see where it says search card number 164. If you decide to click on it, you'll find others in the household. A very useful database, and it is free of charge. If you're interested in connecting with others who are researching descendants of freedmen, who use the final rolls, who use the index to the final rolls, consider becoming a part of the Choctaw Chickasaw Freedmen Association. This has been another Oklahoma Freedmen History Moment. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.